Freedom. A word so powerful that it has sparked revolutions, written histories, and shaped identities. We believe we are free, we fight for freedom, we celebrate it. But what if I told you that much of what we call freedom exists within an invisible fence? A boundary created not by laws or physical walls, but by social pressures, fears, and the norms we internalize. This fence controls not just our actions, but our thoughts. This is not a fence you can see or touch. It's built out of fear of judgment, fear of exclusion, fear of being labeled as wrong or different. Every day, we adjust our behavior, opinions, and even our thoughts to fit within what's socially acceptable. We live in a world that claims to value individuality, but the truth is more complex. The more we try to align with what's considered right, the more our freedom shrinks into something conditional. You can be free, so long as you don't step outside the lines. It's not just others who impose this fence on us. We internalize it. We censor ourselves, afraid to be too much or too different. It's the quiet voice in your head asking, "What will they think of me?" This is the foundation of the fence. Now, let's talk about one of the most visible aspects of this fence in today's world: virtue signaling. Virtue signaling is when people publicly display their alignment with certain values or beliefs, not necessarily because they truly believe in them, but to show others that they are on the right side. It happens all around us. Sharing a post, wearing a symbol, or loudly supporting a cause might seem like genuine expressions of belief, but often they're motivated by a fear of being judged or excluded. This behavior creates an environment where authenticity becomes rare, and conformity becomes king. Even those who disagree with the dominant narrative may feel compelled to go along with it just to avoid being ostracized. Over time, the fence grows taller, not because of external control, but because we keep building it ourselves. But the fence doesn't just affect what we say or do, it infiltrates our minds. It fragments our thoughts, creating an inner conflict between what we truly believe and what we feel we must believe to fit in. Think about it. How often do you second-guess your own ideas? Why did I think that? Am I wrong? Am I a bad person for questioning this? This constant self-surveillance, driven by the fear of judgment, leads us to doubt not just our opinions but our very identity. This is where freedom becomes a lie. When you are afraid of your own thoughts, can you really call yourself free? George Orwell captured this dynamic perfectly in his novel 1984. In Orwell's world, the party controls not just people's actions, but their thoughts. The concept of newspeak, a simplified language designed to eliminate certain ideas altogether, shows how language can be weaponized to control minds. When you remove words for rebellion or freedom, you make it impossible to even think about those concepts. The party doesn't need to police every citizen because people begin to police themselves. They censor their thoughts, fear their instincts, and fragment their own minds to align with what the party demands. Sound familiar? While our world isn't Orwell's dystopia, the parallels are clear. The invisible fence functions much the same way. It shapes what we can say, what we can think, and ultimately who we can be. Now, let's add another layer to this. Often, the drive to create this invisible fence is rooted in empathy. We see others suffering, and it makes us want to eliminate all forms of pain and inequality. It's a noble impulse, but here's the catch: empathy without rationality can lead to unintended consequences. When we try to smooth out the rough edges of human nature, our competitiveness, our preferences, even our individuality, we risk creating a society that's uniform but fragile. A society where everyone has the same thoughts, the same beliefs, the same opportunities, and yes, the same vulnerabilities. In trying to eliminate all sources of conflict, we might strip away the very things that make us human. Diversity of thought, the ability to disagree, the creativity born from friction, these are the foundations of a resilient society. When we smooth out everything, what's left is a society that's easily manipulated and unable to adapt. So, what's the real cost of living inside this fence? It's the loss of authenticity, the suppression of individuality, and the erosion of critical thinking. It's a world where we celebrate freedom in name, but live in fear of stepping out of line. The scariest part? The fence isn't imposed by an authoritarian regime, it's something we build together, one judgment, one fear, one act of conformity at a time. And the longer we live within it, the harder it becomes to recognize it for what it is. The fence of freedom is a paradox we all live with. It promises safety, but at the cost of our true liberty. Breaking free requires courage, courage to embrace our contradictions, to think critically, and to challenge the norms that confine us. The question is, are you ready to break the fence? Are you ready to reclaim your freedom, not just from others, but from the limits you've placed on yourself?